What if you didn't need $1 million to retire early? Instead, just enough to buy back your time. What if financial freedom looked less like yachts and Lamborghinis and more like flying to Lisbon on a Tuesday, working when you feel like it, and saying yes to life whenever it calls? Now that's the promise of Barista FIRE. It's exactly what today's guest is doing. Welcome to Making Sense. It's the podcast for people who want financial freedom without giving up their coffee, supported by our friends at Kiwi Bank. I'm Frances Cook, an independent financial journalist and fellow financial freedom seeker who makes money simple for you. So what is Barista FIRE? It's when you save and invest just enough to cover most of your living costs, probably not all of them. And then you fill the gap with part-time or casual work that you choose. Something fun, something flexible. So you're not stuck in a job that you hate for decades. You get the freedom now. Today's guest, Germano Gomes, made it happen. He paid off his mortgage in 5 years, kept his lifestyle lean, and stacked up savings fast. Now, he travels the world. He picks up work when he wants to, skips it when he doesn't. It's financial freedom on his terms. So, how much did it take? What sacrifices did he make? And could it work for you? Let's find out. Making Sense is on a mission to make money simple, and I just couldn't do that without the support of Kiwi Bank. It's really important to me to only work with companies that understand that mission. And for Kiwi Bank, their purpose is to help Kiwi and Aotearoa be better off. So bringing you real stories of different approaches to finance is one of the ways they're making a difference to the lives of their customers. This is making Kiwi better off. This is Kiwi. All right, joined now by Germano Gomes, and you have used financial independence to build up this really flexible lifestyle that I think a lot of people would envy. You only work part of the year. Tell me what that looks like at this point in life for you. How much do you work? How much do you get to play these days?
These days, I tend to work about half of the year and play about half of the year, give or take. It really depends. This summer I took on a full-time job for 6 months and, I enjoyed it. When I first started, I was working on average about 23, 24 hours a week over the years, but sometimes I would take 4 months off. Sometimes I would work full-time. Really varies. Depends on the year. Depends if I have somewhere I want to be or something I want to do, then I'll travel more. And then, if I need more money for my trips, then I'll work a little bit more to make that up.
How long did it take you to get here? Because you say it took a while. What type of work did you do to be able to build up this sort of flexibility? I suppose it's not just the work you did, it's also been your money strategy, right? So talk me through a little bit of the journey it's been to get here.
Going back to the very beginning, when I first kind of settled in New Zealand and I got my residency and everything after I had done some travels and stuff. Yeah, like me and my partner back then, we bought a house and we were able to pay it off like in about 5 years or so. Bearing in mind that mortgages back then were much, much lower value. They were like in the high 100,000s, 200,000 tops. So it's not like the crazy money that we're talking these days. So of course that makes it makes it much easier. But I was working in the dairy industry. I was working in production, but it kind of took me about maybe 6, 7 years to start the wheels in motion, to having paid off my house, to end up buying a rental property and then having 2 houses for about 2 years. And then I realized that's not the way I wanted to go. And then once I had the mortgage and I built up some FU money and some, build up a bit of a buffer, then I was able to start basically negotiating my hours a little bit more aggressively, if you want to put it that way, because the conversation changed when you have your buffer, when you have your backup money. You can just, you just go and ask for things you want. It just makes it easier. And then if they tell you no, then you go look for it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, well, exactly. Because you were someone who, even in those quite early days, and I know real estate is a tricky one. A lot of the prices now are so high that people struggle with it. But when you bought your first house, you were really, really focused on getting it paid off faster than a lot of people do it, right? And that was quite a key strategy to you building up this financial independence and lifestyle flexibility, right?
Yes, it was. And I have to say, like, I was very, very lucky because I had a partner who trusted me and trusted my numbers. And and back then, like, we were looking at renting, and when I run the numbers, it was just cheaper for us to buy than to rent. That first 5 years, that first 3, 4 years when your interest rates are at the highest, that's when you have to pretty much concentrate on. You have to put everything into it. The first few years are critical, and we were doing that, and we were almost done after a few years because we just went really, really hard. And I don't feel we deprived ourselves from doing what we wanted. We still traveled, we still enjoyed our time off, and we still did whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah, because that first house you got paid off roughly 5 years, is that right? Did you have any particular strategies on paying that off?
Just put as much as you can, as fast as you can. Because I know I'm good at saving money. So I remember we had a portion of it on floating because that way that enabled us to pay that little portion much faster than the rest of the mortgage. And we fixed, I think it was 3 years we fixed, so we knew exactly how much was coming down. And then the floating portion, yeah, we just pretty much concentrated on clearing that up without giving ourselves that buffer, of course, like to for emergencies, for travel, for anything that came up, we had that little buffer there for us. And we were lucky we didn't need it.
What about, the idea of financial independence? I think it can be really motivating for people when they find out about that and find out that there's this whole idea of, building up your financial reserves and using it to build the life that you want. And yet it sounds like you were actually building towards that before you even knew what financial independence was. So when did you find out about the idea of financial independence and what appealed to you about the idea?
Through this book here, good old Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week. This book, I can say, changed my life. Not for the book itself, because I never really done anything the book says to do, but it just opened up. It just changed my way of thinking about things and also cemented some of the ideas I already had. It started naming things that I was already doing that I didn't even know were a thing. But for me, financial independence has always been about flexibility and freedom, just being in control of my own time.
What I love about that as well is that you have shortcutted that quite significantly. You are someone who has heard about the financial independence movement and said, okay, what I want is freedom of time. You've built your version of financial independence quite quickly in a way where you can still bring in money. You still work. You're not one of those people who's got like millions invested and just live off that on a private island somewhere. You are still working flexibly, but on the way that works for you. And I think that's so much more achievable for the average person to do, to have work in the mix, but on their terms. How did you hit on that? How much thinking did you have to do to be like, actually, this is the version of life that I think I would enjoy?
It was a lot of trial and error, of course.
Mhm.
But I think is when I came across like this little phrase, that little quote that say, enough is not a number, it's a decision.
Yeah.
So you have to make that decision. What's enough? How much is enough? And what's enough for me is not enough for you. Like, it's that that number is different for everybody. As much as I enjoyed the work I was doing, it was tying me down. I wanted to travel longer and I wanted to do other things. And but I don't want to just sit in the house and do nothing. I want to still keep occupied.
Hmm.
So so yeah, like sometimes if you can get a job that pays way less, but then you're happier if you have a little bit of a buffer. Like I mean, I of course I live a simple life, so I don't need a lot. So that makes it easier, of course. Like my car is 11 years old, my computer is 11 years old. So yeah, so it's one of those things. They both need changing, by the way. They both need upgrading, but it will come with time.
You clearly know what matters to you though, right? Talk to me about your lifestyle now. How frugal is it in order to make this work? What will you spend on? What won't you spend on?
For example, I don't value like eating out. For example, like doesn't appeal to me. I prefer to buy my own leg of lamb and just roast it and have it in the house, like just cook it myself. But in the other hand, I will drop $2,000 on a plane ticket without even thinking about it. Like I will save on the $5 coffee, but then I will spend 2 grand on a plane ticket. I've joined a hiking club. The other day we went on this hike and it cost $60 because there was a boat trip involved and there was, we had to go across the lake and everything. And I paid $60 without even thinking about it. But in the other hand, if I go out in the city, sometimes I want a coffee and I won't buy it because I think, oh no, $5 is too much. I'm not going to spend it. I'll just have that coffee when I get home. Like I was telling you before, when I built that buffer, when I built that, FU money, if you want to call it, I saved basically a year's worth of my income. And then I figured out that I could actually live on that money for about 4 or 5 years. When I thought I had 1 year's saved up, in fact, I had like 4 years to live off, even if I didn't work at all. And then when you start working for, say, minimum wage or very low income, much lower than what I was on, that money just stretches out, probably, I don't know, 10 years or so if I'm frugal enough, if I keep, being simple enough.
Talk to me about this FU money, because living frugally, living within your means, all great. That gives you money to do something with. Then you do something with it, right? To build up this buffer. So what did you do? Save, invest, property, shares? What did you do with that money that you were looking to put to work?
My ex-partner and I, at the time, we bought a house. And then when we went our separate ways, she bought me out. And then I used that money to put in a deposit. So I bought a house so I had a place to live. And then I concentrated on paying their mortgage off. And then I went to Australia for a couple of years and then I rented that house. And when I came back from Australia, I was going to basically move back into the house. But then, I was looking into rental properties and all of that kind of stuff. So I ended up buying another house and I was flatting. So I was in a flat and I had 2 houses and then I started managing my rental myself. And then I ended up, um, moving into the other house. And when my tenants left, then I made a decision to basically sell that and clear the mortgage. And then I had some change. And then that change became my FU money. And back then I just put it on a term deposit because I didn't really know what to do with it.
And you did it at one point, as you've mentioned, get into investment property. You decided that wasn't for you in the end. Talk to me about that, on whether that was important to your financial strategy and why you decided, actually, no, it's not working for me. What wasn't working?
Well, as they say, hindsight's a beautiful thing. Like if you asked me at the time, I decided not to sell my rental and everything. If I'd sold it probably a year later, I would have probably made 100 grand more on the sale. And if I'd stuck with it for probably another 5 years, it would have been probably 2, 3, 400,000 more. I don't know. When you
Mhm.
look at the yields were just not good enough. I didn't consider the capital gain and all of that kind of stuff. So what I was making having a tenant in my house, I was pretty much making the same on a term deposit without all the hassle. And and for me, something that's really important for me is peace. So I've always wanted peace in my life. So I don't want to have to deal with a lot of things. And I had great tenants. I had a really nice couple. They came from Australia to do a project in Hamilton, and they were there. They told me, look, we will be here for 3 years. I had a property manager when I went to Aussie. When I came back, I managed it myself for another year, a year and a half. I don't remember exactly. And they were great. But once they moved out, that's when I reevaluated everything.
This is the thing. I think a lot of people, and I mean, property investment can often be sold, as you see a lot of um, those seminars that they charge you money to attend, where they say, get rich through property and it can be this amazing passive investment, yada, yada, yada. And property can be an amazing investment. I think it can stack up really well, but I would never call it passive. I just think it's very, very rare to find property that works passively. And even if it does for a while, often something will happen and it's not passive anymore. You've got to get on with it and get your hands in there. It's like you say, if someone like you who valued the flexibility, valued your peace, it often doesn't work, right?
No, it doesn't. But and also like I hate debt. I mean, I don't like it. Honestly, at that time, 5 years in, probably one house would pay the mortgage off easily, but you don't know those things. I just couldn't sleep if I had a $1 million mortgage. So I prefer to just pay my house off and just get that out of my shoulders, get that off my back. Yeah, and I agree with you. It's definitely not passive. And then you have property managers and they charge a fee, and then you have mortgage interest rates, and then that's money that you're spending. So sometimes your house may double in value, but if you've spent half of it in interest to the banks, then your profit's actually not that great. So you've got to run your numbers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Check the numbers. I think even when I talk to people who are keen on property, a lot of them will very freely say, property can be amazing, but the average house is not necessarily a good property investment. Always, always run the numbers, even if you are keen on it. Okay, let's keep pulling on the hot topics and say property versus shares, because I know people love to debate this one. What about yourself? Does that mean that you've ended up going more towards shares? Are you a fan of those?
I took the big dip that the market had during COVID, and then I thought that would be a great time to get in. And I did, and it was a great time to get in, but I didn't know a lot about it. So yeah, it is good. Is it bad? I don't know. Like I said, if I kept my house, I'll probably be better off having had a property. But that was back. That's past. And with the shares, after my first year that I put some money there, I was probably up by like 40% or something when I looked. But today, if I was to sell my whole portfolio, I'll probably take a 30% loss
Mm.
because I did not know what I was doing, and I was picking shares myself. I didn't know a lot of things. I was going on gut. That's not the very good way of doing it. But I haven't sold anything, so I don't know. Have I taken a loss? I don't know yet. That's to be this is to be advised. That's TBA.
Okay. So to sort of sum up how you handle the money side of it now, and then we're going to move on to lifestyle because I just love the lifestyle that you've built for yourself. Am I right in saying that you've basically used the FU money that you've built up? You've made sure that you're debt free, living this quite simple, quite frugal life. You've got some stashed in savings, some stashed in shares, and then you can use that to be able to, you still work, but only part of the year and on your terms. And you've got that financial buffer to keep living your life flexibly. Is that a fair summary? Is there anything you'd change in there?
No, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, like but these days because I don't know when I'm going to be working and how long I'm going to be working for, I went towards dividend paying shares because then I get that little trickling of money coming in.
Hmm.
So that's basically that has been my choice. My main concern was basically to have enough passive income that would pay off my bills. So if I was to sit in my house, never go out, never do anything, just go to the supermarket, buy food, and come back home and be able to pay my power bill and my rates, that's all I wanted. And, I'm pretty much there now. So everything, all the work that I do has become play money.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, the lifestyle you've built, it's amazing. You do a lot of travel. You've also built in this, what I think is a very smart little travel hack. You do a lot of volunteering for huge sports events as well. So talk to me about that. You've been part of some really big tournaments, right?
Yes, I have. It all started in good old Hamilton because they had the under 17 Women's World Cup. FIFA was 2008. That was my first ever event, and yeah, and I was a driver on that event, and I absolutely love it. So I started looking at just going overseas. Like I was lucky last year we had the Euro in Germany, And I have a cousin who lives in Germany. So I was in Germany for a month last year, volunteering at the Europe. Yeah, so I did a tennis tournament in Australia, and I'm looking at going to do a volleyball tournament in Adelaide later in this year. So I'm already looking forward to that one. If there are places I haven't been, so I make a trip out of a volunteering event.
What's it like volunteering for these tournaments? Is it hard to get accepted to be part of the crew? And actually, do you even get to watch much of the games? Or are you quite busy with all the volunteering aspects?
Depends on the day and depends on the role. The Women's World Cup. For the first 3 matches, I was driving the referees to the match. So I got to watch all the matches on those particular days. And then the other 2 matches that we had, I was doing other things during the match, so I wasn't able to. So it really depends where you are, which role you get. And yeah, and as for getting in, like I mean, for me it's easy now because I'm basically become a professional volunteer. But having said that, last year when I went to Germany, I also applied to be at the Champions League final in Wembley. And yeah, and then I missed out. I booked a hostel 2 stations out of Wembley Stadium. I booked my flights to go to London, but it turns out I was not accepted on the Champions League final. So I had 8 days in London, just enjoying the city. I hadn't been to London in 22 years, so it was good to go back and see the old places again.
Should kids earn their pocket money or just get it? Julia from our friends at Kiwi Bank joins us to settle the debate and shares smart ways to teach kids about money. Catch the episode from 17 July. The pocket money debate. Should kids earn it or just get it? This is making Kiwi better off. This is Kiwi. Yeah, it strikes me as one of those things that, I mean, obviously the tickets to some of those events can be insane. So if you really want to see behind the scenes on those games, then maybe great. But it's also a very different way to get under the skin and have a different experience. I mean, I've said that sometimes before about, traveling as a journalist, that I would get to go to places that you can't normally just get into, and you talk to people that you can't normally talk to. Is that part of the appeal as well, to really get under the skin if you're a bit sports mad, to also, see how the sausage is made?
Oh, of course. With the Hamilton Sevens, like I was a liaison officer for the teams, and you run into the pitch with them. You sit on in the dugout. I volunteered at a Black Caps match in Seddon Park in Hamilton, and I was holding the screen behind Ross Clark. He'd just been elected man of the match, and I was actually holding the screen with all the sponsors. I was standing there. I was behind him as he was being interviewed. So you have those little stories. You definitely have to get to be in the thick of the action, and yeah, you definitely see things people normally don't see.
Yeah. And the rest of it as well. You are someone who has a big priority on travel, right? So, what are some cool places you've traveled? And is there any that you would recommend or not recommend?
I like hiking as well. So I've walked across Switzerland a few years ago. And you look at the map and you see, oh, it's going to take about 20 days, and I can book for 30 days. I give myself a buffer if something happens. I've walked across Spain. I've done the Camino. I booked 40 days to do the Camino, and I only needed 30. So I had 6 days in Portugal afterwards to enjoy and see the place. So I like to travel with a bit of a purpose, and I'm able to travel a lot because I travel on the cheap and I travel off season. And I travel usually on my own because I can't find people with the same amount of time. And that's the other thing I want to talk about, the financial side of things. Like, some people see, oh, you travel a lot, but like, I spent 2 months in Europe and I spent the same as a couple of friends spent in 2 weeks.
What are some of your good travel hacks then? Because, like you say, you spent the same in 2 months that some friends spent in 2 weeks. You can easily spend oodles of money when traveling. I mean, there's a whole industry just itching to get its fingers in your pockets and tell you it's worth it, it's life changing, it's going to be the best thing you ever did. And, like, maybe, but often maybe not too. So, what are your good travel hacks? How do you travel for less?
I think the main thing is just going off season, first of all. and make the most of the travel special. So when I went to Hawaii, for example, a normal ticket to Hawaii is like 1,000, 1,200 return. I paid 500 return. I remember Air New Zealand had the special, and it was between that date and that date. So that's when I went because I could. For the price of whatever you would go on a normal airfare, I went and I spent 11 days, and I didn't spend $1,000 in 11 days, including airfares, accommodation, food, everything. I stay in hostels. That's probably not for everyone. Sometimes I will drag my tent across the world and I'll wild camp. I'll stay in campgrounds. I'm happy. I don't do it to save money. I mean, of course it helps, but I also enjoy. Not all the time. I haven't gone the van life yet, but I could probably. But the biggest one is just going off season, and if you can put up with sleeping with 12 other people in a room, then yeah, just go hustling.
I love off-season travel as well. Can I just say, like, a lot of off-season travel, A, you've cut down massively on the crowds. B, everything else that you do there is probably cheaper too. And also, I don't know if this is just like I've been really lucky, but every time I've done off-season travel, the shoulder season is the classic. If you look for, you can find, Google wherever you're wanting to go, and then shoulder season, and you'll often find dates for when's the classic on that. I find the weather is usually better then too. It's not too hot, not too cold in most situations. I don't know. I'm such a fan of the off-season travel. Such a hack.
Oh, it is. And like I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of eating out, for example. So I'll eat at the supermarket. I'll go to the supermarket. That's where I buy my food. I'll buy my beer at the supermarket as well. Like I don't go to bars and pubs and restaurants and that because not because I don't think I should, it's just because that I don't necessarily like it as much. And I take public transport and I travel by train and I take the buses and I walk a lot. So yeah, there's many ways of cutting costs, and of course, I mean, I travel by myself. If you travel with someone else with kids, it's a completely different trip.
Yeah, and the things you mentioned there as well, going to a supermarket, walking around lots, taking public transport. I also think those are other underrated ways to get properly under the skin of wherever you're going. I mean, those are all things that I love as well. And especially using public transport is brilliant when I cannot be bothered trying to figure out road rules in a new country. That sounds like a great way to have a bad time and maybe an accident. Not for me. But the eating at the supermarket, public transport, walking around places, you really do have different experiences. You get more of the ambiance of a place. You interact with people in a different way. You see how other people live their actual lives. The people who live there aren't going to bars and restaurants every evening. Who can afford that when you're just in your daily life? They're going to the supermarket, and you'll see different foods and you'll see different things around. I mean, you mentioned Hawaii. I remember being really struck, such a small thing, really struck by how they would have these arrays of the hard liquor in the Hawaiian supermarkets, because of course you don't do that in New Zealand. It's beer and wine only. And I just remember being really struck by that very small cultural difference. But you don't see those things if you don't go where average people are living their average lives. It's a frugal hack, but it's also a travel hack, I feel.
Oh, it definitely is. And mentioning Hawaii, the bus system in Honolulu is amazing. It's so good. It goes everywhere. And the other thing too, like when you combine the volunteering, that's something I should bring it up. Like I was in Germany, your accreditation for when you are volunteer on those big events, your accreditation gives you free public transport in the city or in the region you're at. So I got to go to so many little German villages and little towns nearby, on the days that I was in Rotterdam, which I had quite a lot this time around. And I just explored the region quite extensively, which was great. All free, like because of my accreditation, of course. I mean, I gave a lot of my time to the tournament and all of that kind of stuff. Just going to Bondi, you catch a bus, like, it's $4, $5, $6 or something. That's my dinner in the supermarket most days.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I've got to say, like, I really love what you've built here. I think the flexibility, the freedom, the travel, it's just so interesting. The lifestyle that you've built up, it's so unique. And I just think it's great that you figured out earlier on in life than a lot of people do that those are the things that you valued. If someone wanted to start building financial independence in a similar way to what you've done, where do you think they should start?
I think they should start by knowing their numbers. That's probably the main thing. And without being too patronizing, but just spend less than you earn. I think that's which unfortunately,
I know people hate hearing it, but it is true. It's the building blocks.
of course, because I mean, I have friends that they ask me all the time, "Oh my God, I want to do what you do," and then when I tell them what I've done, and they say, "Oh no, but I don't want to do that." So, well,
Well, that is the price of entry. How much do you want? I often say this, right? It's like, do you want the end result or you're going to be living the journey so much, right? So if you want it bad enough, you'll do the things that get you there. If you don't want to do the things that get you there, you don't want it bad enough.
oh, of course. I mean, it's a process, and you've got to have your priorities, and you've got to establish your boundaries and what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And but bear in mind, like I not necessarily know what I want. I still probably don't. I just take every year as it comes. One thing I know is a lot of the times you just gotta know what you don't want as well. So you can eliminate what you don't want and then let everything else unfold in front of you. And then just go with the wind. But you need to have that buffer. You need to have that backup to be able to, you know, to go with the flow. And it's not, you can't just do that out of a whim. Of course, like you need to have some sort of foundations established.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think is the biggest factor that helped you get to where you are now?
I mean, I'm reasonably frugal. I live a simple life, so that of course helps. I don't spend a lot as it is, and I'm really good with numbers. I can do maths, or I can get to ballparks just in my head quite easily. Sometimes it helps to spot a bad deal from a good deal. It's not that I understand a lot of the how the game is played, but I have a really, you know, overview of it. So it helps me play the game a bit better. And, once again, the podcast, the books that I've read, and
Mm.
that also helped. That just the way of thinking, it just opens up a whole new world. Like that's what I felt it did for me. And all the books from the library, sure, you don't need to spend a lot of money. Like go to your local library. It's really great.
Yeah, and do you know what I've found is I'm, obviously a podcast addict, and it's how I first got into podcasting. Is I was listening to overseas podcasts and was like, at that point there were no New Zealand money podcasts, and I was just like, I really want this. I guess I'll just make it. But what I love about things like, heading up the library, getting the books, having a podcast that drops something every week or whatever, is you get that regular drip of motivation. And I think especially when you're starting something, it gets easier as you go. You're always going to need motivation, but you're going to need more of it when you're trying to make a change or start on something. And having something in your ears every week or even every day, depending on how many you're listening to, it really helps you stay in the mindset of, yeah, this is what matters to me. This is what I'm focused on. Because there's so much noise in the rest of life, right? That can really get in your head and distract you, I think.
There is this great guy called Jerry Colonna, and it was on Tim Ferriss' podcast. And he said, "How am I complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want?" And a lot of the time, you dig your own holes, advertently or inadvertently. You do it, and sometimes you just gotta stop and look back and look inside and see what have I been doing that is actually going against me. And that got me thinking for for a number of months, probably years. And I still, I still have that line written down everywhere because I love it. I love it so much.
I think that line's gonna stay with me now too. That's a cracker of a line. I'm gonna be spending the rest of our conversation with that just, like, rotating in my head.
a lot of living hacks, I should say.
Well, that's the whole point, right? I mean, look what you've done with your money is you've created a lifestyle from it. It's the old thing. Money itself not important, it just impacts everything else that it is, right? So listening to people from all sorts of walks of life can give you ideas of how you might want to change one to influence the other. Speaking of, being complicit in the lifestyles that we don't want, have there been any setbacks along your journey? Is there anything that anyone who's listening to this should avoid if they're wanting to build this financially flexible freedom lifestyle?
Sometimes you want to work and you can't find something straight away because your CV becomes quite patchy and yeah, I mean, you come across as flaky to a lot of employers, and a lot of people don't want to take you on because they think you're just gonna leave and stuff. But little do they know that you can be the best employee sometimes because you're not there for money. You're there because you want to be there. You want to do what they're offering. And so that's probably one of the biggest setbacks is, sometimes I want to work at places and I just can't get in.
Hmm.
Or I have a 2 month trip coming up in the next 3 months and and I usually disclose it. I'm open and I've missed out on jobs because of it.
How do you balance that? What sort of work do you end up doing? Because you do have a very varied work history, right? Do you just end up when you're like, okay, it's time for me to earn something, get out there, meet people in the workplace, get a little extra cash coming in? Do you target specific industries or types of work? Like, how do you make that work?
Well, when I left the dairy industry and I started moving to the South Island, like I had a little pit stop in because I just fresh off production, so I managed to get myself into a vintage in a big winery, so that was really good. It's 2 months hard out work, and you learn a lot, you work a lot, but you make good money because you're doing like massive hours. And when I got to Christchurch, like I went to I tried to get back into production, but like the money wasn't as good. So I thought, man, I don't want to be in a place that I don't want to be to make crappy money. So if I'm gonna make crappy money, I wanna be doing what I want.
Yeah, fair.
So So at first, I actually signed up with a temp agency, and then I got a couple of jobs through it, and then I ended up getting another job at a big warehouse, and I enjoyed that. It's just like I haven't really targeted anything. It's just a matter of I was looking at the hours, but that was at the beginning. Like, and now that I moved to Queenstown, I've kind of gone to hospitality, of course, and gone to retail, hospitality kind of situation because that's what it's available here. And they do take a lot of casuals. They do take a lot of casual workers here and seasonal workers because that's the nature of the city. I just fit in. The only difference that I'm not on a working holiday visa. I'm a permanent resident. So
I love it. I love it. Just giving it a crack and building up all these different life experiences, whether that's travel or work related. Look, what's next for you? Are you thinking more travel? Do you have different financial goals? What's next on the horizon?
financially wise, I've decided it's enough. What I have every year, I don't touch my buffer. I see what happens next year. I'm really not putting too much thought into it. Yeah, I could get another $1 million, $2 million, whatever. That would be great. I mean, I'm not saying it's not good, but I don't need $1 million. I don't need $500,000. I need way less than that, and that still kind of keeps me afloat. And not with the water up to here. Like I'm comfortably afloat. And then you get the odd jobs here and there. I think next is just try to get another casual job and figuring out what I'm gonna do next summer. If I'm gonna get another full-time job for the summer again, or if I'm gonna try to do something else. I really don't know. I have the volleyball tournament in Adelaide in November that I'm hoping to volunteer at. That's the only thing I kind of have on at the moment.
That sounds amazing. I love the flexibility and the freedom that you've built. And I think you've built it so much earlier through life than so many people do. So that's brilliant. It really speaks volumes towards deciding on your values and just hit and go on them. Thank you so much. That's Germano Gomes telling us all about his financially independent, financially free lifestyle. It's great. Now, if this episode was helpful to you, do hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. More importantly, send it to a friend so we can all be inspired about the different things we could do with our money and the ways it can create a life that we actually love. Until next time, have a great day. just a note before you go. This podcast can only give you general information about how things work in most cases. It's not individual financial advice. We're all different, so some of this might not apply to your specific situation. Take what works for you, ignore the rest. If you're after individual financial advice, a financial advisor is always the best bet.